Hey! My name is Kurgan and I'm a cosplayer. Most of my videos are about cosplay, anime, or a combination of the two. Today I'm going to be talking about whether you should buy or make your costume. I'll go over reasons or scenarios where it might make more sense to do one or the other, and also pros and cons for each. So I'm going to start with buying your costume. So pro number one of buying your costume is convenience. And obviously it's convenient to buy a costume that's already made. You don't have to spend any of your time trying to sew it yourself. And on a related note, you don't have to learn how to sew. You don't have to already know how to sew or teach yourself how to sew. Second pro is it's time efficient. Maybe you work full-time and need all of your free time for a more intensive costume or project. Time is pretty precious, and buying a pre-made costume can definitely save you a ton of time. Another pro is that it is pretty easy and low stress comparatively. Every decision has already been made for you, and all you need to do is try on the costume and make any adjustments you need. The next pro is that this is great for simpler or more standardized costumes like school uniforms, idol outfits, bodysuits, or outfits of currently popular characters. For example, costumes from anime like Demon Slayer or My Hero Academia are pretty easy to find. Another pro is that pre-made costumes are pretty widely accessible and available at all different price points. So you can find simpler costumes like school uniforms for really inexpensive and reasonable prices on places like AliExpress and Amazon. More elaborate, larger costumes are obviously gonna spend a bit more, but they're still gonna be in a pretty reasonable price range on Amazon, AliExpress, and the handful of other dozens of other. If you really want something grand and handcrafted by an artisan cosplayer, you can of course commission a cosplayer or professional seamstress to make the costume for you. Obviously, this is probably the most expensive option because you're essentially commissioning an artist for a piece of artwork. This costume is made specifically for you. It's fully custom. It's handcrafted by, a professional seamstress or professional cosplayer who really knows what they're doing and can spend and devote a lot of time and care and detail to your costume. So this option will cost you a lot more than if you were to buy a mass-produced costume from China, since most commissioners put a lot of individual care and detail into their work. And generally, these commissioners tend to be self-employed and just working for themselves, so they have to charge their labor and time and factor that in, since that's basically, that's their living. That's how they're feeding themselves. That's how they're paying the rent and the bills. Okay, now we'll move on to cons of buying your costume. The first con is that sizes can be limited, especially if you have a harder to fit body type, and be mindful that Asian sizes are a bit different than US or other sizes. Material options might be a bit limited. Sometimes they can look pretty cheap and they can be limited to like this really basic polyester material. Again, you usually get what you pay for. So be careful, do your due diligence on the seller, look at reviews, especially photo reviews. Those are going to be a big help so that you know what you're getting and you know what to expect. And the next con of buying your costume is you can't enter craftsmanship-based cosplay contests. So this is really kind of a no-brainer, and I feel like more people should generally know this, but you'd be surprised. This is probably the biggest area where purchase cosplay gets the most flack. And this is because some people abuse this and lie about costumes they didn't make. Please just don't do this. It's always gonna set you up for a bad time. It's just a bad idea all around. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about reasons or situations where it just might make more sense to buy your costume than make it. Situation number one is you're in a group and the costumes you need are all readily available to purchase and they already meet everyone's standards and aesthetics. And also, maybe not everyone in your group knows how to sew or can sew very well. Another reason you might prefer to buy your costume is you're cosplaying a very popular character that has many costumes already readily available. And also for cheaper than you could make that costume yourself. Another reason is you don't know how to sew, or you're a novice crafter, and buying your costume would look just that much cleaner and nicer than if you were to try to make it yourself. Another situation is that you already know how to sew. This ain't your first rodeo with cosplay. You're more advanced at crafting, but you can't, or you just don't want to put in the time and effort of making this costume from scratch when you have pretty good and decent options already available. Alright, now I'm going to talk about making your costume and pros and cons for making your costume. So pro number one is that you have full freedom of creativity and control over the finished costume. This includes what materials you use, how accurate you are to the source design, or if you want to take creative liberties, and anything you might want to embellish or make a certain way. Next pro is that you have more flexibility and options for fitting your particular body type. You have full control of altering or tailoring a garment for the most flattering fit for your body. Next pro is that you can enter craftsmanship cosplay contests. And usually there's a 70-30% rule where you have to make at least 70% of your costume yourself. Obviously things like shoes and wigs, no one's expecting you to make yourself. Honestly, most judges don't even make these things themselves. Next pro is that you can develop and challenge your skills. And this can include sewing, crafting, armor prop making. Final pro is just that sense of accomplishment and pride that you get with your creation. And there is definitely a certain pride in being able to say that you made a costume yourself. Now I will discuss the cons for making your costume. First con is obviously this route is more time consuming and labor intensive. You're in charge of all the decision making and the problem solving, and you're also responsible for all of the work that goes into making your costume. Another con is that you need to have a good grasp? What's a grasp? You need to have a good grasp of sewing and crafting, or some way to learn. Another con, this might be one of the biggest cons in my opinion, is you might not be successful making your own costume. You might mess up parts of the costume and end up just kind of disappointed in it, or you might completely, utterly fail and have to scrap the entire project and start over. It's really frustrating. I mean, it's not called Con Crunch for nothing, folks. If it ever comes to a point where there's a sewing machine in a hotel room, just stop. And here are some reasons or situations where it might just make more sense for you to make your own costume. One is you're in a group of more experienced cosplayers who all have a firm grasp of sewing and want to make your costumes a very specific way. Another reason is you might want to challenge yourself by learning or developing certain techniques or crafting skills, and this applies to both new and experienced sewers. You also might want to level up your craftsmanship in general and just diversify your skills so you can attempt more advanced costumes in the future. This is probably the number one reason why I make most of my costumes, is you have a very specific vision in mind of how you want your costume to turn out, or you want to take creative liberties on a character's design. Other reasons include that you can just make the costume for cheaper than buying it, you can't order your costume because it doesn't come in your size, pre-made costume of the character you want doesn't exist because this character is more obscure, or you could be cosplaying a decently well-known character, but this outfit in particular is more obscure, like it's from an art book or something. Or maybe you're striving to be known as a master craftsman or artisan and need to develop your skills a bit more. This could apply if you're wanting to start a business or commissioning, or if you want to become a craftsmanship judge or cosplay guest, or if you just want street cred as someone who can make cool things. There are also ways the two, buying and making your costumes, can overlap. You can make certain parts of your costume and buy other parts. You can also make some costumes and also buy some costumes and have a combination of both in your cosplay closet. I'll delve more into that in another video, but just know that there are many ways to go about cosplay, and no way is more right or wrong than the other. To see my next video unpacking cosplay topics, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. And go ahead and give this vid a thumbs up if you're still here. That'll help me out as a small content creator so much. All right, see you next time.